The Deep Dive, sponsored by BigBrain AI, where 6 AI models analyze every trade, every game, every market, so you don't rely on just one opinion. One consensus, zero bias. That's BigBrain AI.
Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take your complex source material and really pull out the critical knowledge you need. And today we are wading right into the pretty sharp-edged world of sports predictions. We're looking at a matchup between the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, and on the surface, it looks like a pretty straightforward regular season game. But the sources we looked at, Claude, OpenAI, and Gemini, they offer three completely different ways of looking at the outcome. They really don't agree on which variables even matter most.
And that's exactly why we're here. Our listeners sent these in because they want to know, where's the smart money? But the real mission here for this deep dive isn't just about who wins. It's about figuring out why these expert models disagree so much. You have one side that's all about market efficiency and roster strength, and then another that's betting on like a hot streak and one key injury.
It really is a deep dive into critical thinking. I mean, we have the projections, sure, but the analysis of why those projections exist and which facts are maybe being ignored or overweighted, that's the real insight here. We have to figure out if long-term things like roster cohesion matter more than short-term noise.
Okay, let's unpack this. We should probably start with the majority view, what we're calling the efficient market consensus. This side, mostly coming from Gemini and OpenAI, is firmly in the Cleveland Cavaliers corner.
Right, and they landed on this really powerful alignment. Both sources cited an implied win probability for the Cavaliers of 65%.
65%. Okay, that's a big number. So for anyone who's not, deep in the weeds of professional betting, what does implied probability actually mean?
Right, so it just means that if you take the raw odds the market is offering and you translate that into a percentage, you get 65%. It's basically telling you that the professional betting community, what Gemini calls the sharp bettors, they are overwhelmingly confident in Cleveland.
Okay, so this isn't just a guess.
No, not at all. What's so fascinating is the weight of that consensus. It signals this is based on a synthesis of everything the market values, That 65% reflects a belief in their overall team performance, their roster, key matchups, everything. It sort of smooths out any minor recent bumps.
And Gemini added a really interesting detail about location.
Yeah.
It mentioned that based on how these games are usually listed, the Bulls are probably the home team.
Yeah.
So if the Cavaliers are still favored to win on the road, that 65% feels even stronger, doesn't it?
It's a much stronger endorsement, exactly. The market is saying it trusts the stability and the quality of the Cavaliers so much that it overcomes home court advantage. And OpenAI, which also agrees with that 65% number, helps us fill in the why. It gives us the specific inputs the market is looking at.
Right. They pointed to three main advantages for the Cavs. The first one was team health. OpenAI reported that key players are healthy and that they've been, pivotal in recent wins against similar teams. Roster stability is huge.
And second was cohesion. The source used the exact phrase, cohesive team dynamics, which means their plays, their defensive rotations, it's all working like a well-oiled machine.
And lastly, OpenAI kind of flipped it around and pointed out the Bulls' weaknesses as justification.
Yeah.
They mentioned Chicago's inconsistency, especially in away games, and noted that their defense has been struggling.
So if you're a sharp bettor, the math looks pretty simple, right? You've got Cavalier strength, health, cohesion, market backing, and that just outweighs the Bulls' weaknesses of inconsistency and poor defense. You land right on that 65% edge for Cleveland. They're the clear favorite.
So yeah, that seems pretty definitive. OpenAI and Gemini are giving us this whole picture of the consensus. The market is pricing in all these long-term factors. What would it even take, data-wise, to make those bettors think twice?
It would have to be some kind of significant short-term disruption. And that brings us to the contrarian view. This is where the deep dive really gets going, because the agreement just stops cold.
Right. And here's where we shift from that long-term signal to what might be short-term noise. We turn to Claude, who tells the listener to pick the Bulls against the spread. That directly challenges that really solid 65% consensus.
Yeah, and for anyone who doesn't follow betting that closely, picking the Bulls against the spread is important. It doesn't mean Claude is saying the Bulls will win the game. They're predicting that the Cavaliers will not beat the Bulls by the margin that the odds makers have set. They think the market has it wrong.
Okay. So Claude is basically saying, hey, that point spread is way too high. The Bulls are going to keep this close or maybe even win it. And the logic here is, It's just completely different. It's all about two really volatile things, momentum and one specific major injury.
Let's start with momentum. Claude points out that while the market sees the Cavs as stable, while they've been pretty inconsistent lately, they've gone just 5-5 over their last 10 games. But the Bulls, who OpenAI called inconsistent, are actually on a hot streak. They've won 7 of their last 10.
That 7-3 run for Chicago, that's a huge counter-argument to just calling them inconsistent. I mean, 7 wins out of 10 is a massive data point suggesting they're very consistent right now.
And you have to ask, who are those wins against? Momentum isn't just a number. It's about the quality of the opponent. If those 7 wins were against bottom-feeder teams, Claude's argument is weaker. But if they beat playoff contenders, that 7-3 run is suddenly the most relevant piece of data we have.
Absolutely. The analogy is so clear. OpenAI and Gemini are looking at like a stock's 5-year average, the stability, the quality of the asset. Claude is looking at its performance right after a massive product recall. It's that immediate short-term shock to the system. Claude is betting the noise will overwhelm the signal.
And they didn't stop there. Claude also brings in the historical head-to-head data. They note that this matchup is usually tight, with the Bulls actually holding a slight 6-4 edge over the last 10 games. That's another little chip away at the dominance the market is pricing in.
So the market consensus is based on years of team building. But that 6-4 record suggests that when these two specific teams meet, the Bulls have some kind of advantage. But wait, we've saved the biggest piece for last, the one thing that could just completely crater that 65% number.
The injury factor. Claude specifically says the Cavaliers will be without their star player due to injury. This is the real kicker. It means even if the overall roster is better, the absence of that one key person fundamentally changes the whole power dynamic.
And so Claude concludes that with the Bulls' 7-3 form, their 6-4 head-to-head record, and this massive injury to the Cavs, the odds are actually tilted towards the Bulls covering the spread. They call them the smart pick.
So we have two completely different data-driven philosophies here. One is all about current roster stability, the health of key players, market efficiency. The other is about short-term momentum, specific history, and the huge effect of losing one star player.
Okay, so now we have to synthesize this. We need to identify the critical knowledge gaps for you, the listener. Let's just break down exactly where these sources are in direct conflict.
The injury information is the biggest one, right? Claude says the star Cavalier is out. OpenAI says key players are healthy. That raises this immediate and really crucial ambiguity. Are key players and the star player two different groups of people?
Or is one source just working with old information? This is a perfect lesson in data literacy because the betting market moves incredibly fast. If OpenAI's analysis came out just before that star player's injury was announced, that 65% figure is basically worthless.
On the other hand, if Claude is just going off an unconfirmed rumor, then their entire analysis is built on, sand. We have to see this ambiguity as a critical vulnerability in the entire projection, that one player could nullify the whole consensus.
And that's the difference between seeing a summary that says roster health is good and actually checking the specific name on the official injury report. This is maybe the most actionable thing we've found. Your first step has to be verifying the status of that specific injured star.
Then you have the conflict over performance. Claude is highlighting the Bulls' 7-3 run against the Cavs' 5-5. That's a clear momentum advantage. But OpenAI just brushes that off, calling the Bulls inconsistent based on season-long data.
It's just a matter of perspective, isn't it? Are you looking at the macro, the whole season, or are you looking at the micro, this 10-game snapshot? You're really arguing whether 2 hot weeks can just override 6 months of established metrics.
And finally, the home court factor. OpenAI really stresses the Cavs' significant home advantage as a reason for that 65%. Claude's analysis just implicitly discounts it, focusing on the Bulls being the smart pick on the road. It suggests the momentum and the injury are big enough to cancel out any location bias.
If you connect all this to the bigger picture, the philosophical difference is all about the weight you assign to these things. The market, through Gemini and OpenAI, trusts stability, long-term health, and location. They're pricing in the foundation of the team.
Whereas the contrarian, Claude, trusts volatility. They believe that momentum plus the sudden shock of a star player being out creates a temporary inefficiency in the market. They're betting that emotion and circumstance in this one single game are more powerful than years of stats.
Right, and you have to decide who you trust more. Does that 6-4 head-to-head record matter more than a current 5-5 streak? And does that 65% market number already account for the missing star? Or is Claude spotting a weakness the market hasn't caught up to yet?
It's a classic debate. The analysis from OpenAI and Gemini tells us how the game should go based on structural data. The analysis from Claude tells us how the game might go based on human factors like momentum and the psychological blow of a sudden loss.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? It means getting well-informed isn't just about reading the consensus, that 65% number. It's about finding those specific nuanced data points, the 6-4 record, the 7-3 run, the star's injury status, that create a really compelling counter-narrative.
Yeah, we've got two clear arguments. The market favors the Cavaliers based on structural factors like stability and location, which gives you that 65% implied probability. And the counter-argument favors the Bulls against the spread based on, incredible recent form and one devastating injury.
The real win here is understanding the logic, no matter who actually covers the spread. It's realizing that prediction, whether it's stocks, sports, or politics, it's this constant battle of deciding which data point matters most in that exact moment.
And that leaves us with a final thought for you to explore. In any complex system like this, how quickly can just one variable, like a star player's injury, completely flip the perceived efficiency of a market?
And maybe more broadly, if the consensus is that the market is always right, why do sources like Claude even exist? Are they truly finding hidden weaknesses, or are they just putting more weight on noise that the market has already correctly dismissed? Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for tuning in, and see you next time on The Deep Dive, sponsored by BigBrain AI.
Experience the future of prediction markets. Get plugged into BigBrain today at brainbig.ai.